Hi, kindergarten, first and second grade leaders. Welcome back. We are preparing for August 2nd in our series called Like Jesus. There's a couple of things that I want you to know. First off, we are combining all of kindergarten, first and second grade groups for the next few months. We'll see if we need to at any point split them up, but for now we're trying to have fewer amount of leaders so that we have limited exposure for everyone in our church family in having the ability to contract or to give COVID to anybody else. And so what you will notice is you are in a very large room. That is because per CDC recommendations, while we are in this phase 3 of transmission in our community, we should provide for extra space so that everyone can have the appropriate social distance. Now, I know, because I work with kids with you, that our kids are going to have a difficult time keeping their social distance, but because we have a greater amount of space for them to spread out in, we have given them the opportunity to spread out. So don't be the police that tries to keep them apart from each other. People are going to be happy to see each other. Parents have been trying to protect them anyway, and the kids that are going to be coming in this phase, it's because their family has chosen that they feel comfortable bringing their kid at this time, okay? So we're going to be okay. We are prayed up, and I encourage you to join me in praying that God continues to protect all of us and keep us all safe. I, like you, don't want for anyone to get very ill. I know I've had family members and close friends who have been very ill. And so I know what this disease and this virus is doing to people, but we're going to continue to do ministry so that we can love on people and share the message of Jesus. While I say that, I also want you to know in your room, we have taken the crew and they have created an obstacle course for you that's taped out on the floor for you to use as a way to fill some time with the kids in that big space. If you want other resources, please let us know. We're trying to limit the amount of items that anybody touches, because after anything has been touched, we need to follow a 2-step process in cleaning and then sanitizing it. And I know, because you're probably doing this at work and everywhere else, I don't want to spend my entire time cleaning. I want to be with people. So we're going to have fewer things so that we can spend our time with the people. And so if there's any point though where you feel like, if I had something, it might help me do this, I want to provide that for you with the idea in mind that less is more, okay? And so that is available for you in your spaces as everyone is gathering. Also, as we always do, we have a game for you to do. So I encourage you, as the kids are coming in, to go ahead and get them started with the Jenga game. We've already prepped this game for you. So all you have to do is set up the blocks. And there is in here a little die that has color blocks on it. In case you're wondering, the pink and the red are very similar, so you just decide which one's pink and which one's red, okay? Sorry, my printer wasn't printing very clearly. All right, and so as you do that, you will have this. And this is kind of a fun way to do a getting to know you, since we haven't seen each other in a while, and starting next week we'll have our new kindergartners with us. It's a fun time for us to get to know each other and to ask questions about each other and to kind of think about school starting and all of that as well. So as you roll the die, and whatever die that you roll on, they have to pull that block out of the Jenga without making the Jenga go down. And as soon as they pull their block, then you can ask them a question that fits that category. And so play that game as many times as you want to. And then our lesson today is from the book of Mark, Mark 1. And what we're doing in this series is we're looking at Jesus's public ministry, the time when he was an adult He's already grown up and has not necessarily attended any training, but God decided it's time for him um, to go out and do, or at least record all the things that Jesus is doing. So the disciples have been called. In our last lesson, we talked about how Jesus called the disciples, and these are not people who would typically be teachers or preachers or healers. Jesus came from a carpenter's family. So carpenter's families usually didn't go to the synagogue to teach or to heal anybody. Most of the men that he called to be a disciple were fishermen. And they for sure were not people that would go in a synagogue or teach or take care of other people, except for people in their community. But it's like what they're going out and doing, just like the church, is very different than what their profession is. And so when they showed up in these locations, I'm sure, as they would here today, they were looked like people looked at them strangely, like, what is so and so son doing standing in front of everybody? What does he have to share? Like, what's going on with him? And then on top of that, Jesus is God, right? He's not just man, amazing teacher, um, discipler, making, pulling people in. He is God. And so when God walks in the room, God authority follows Jesus. And so Jesus walks into the synagogue, and the scripture says he spoke with authority. Now, I don't know if you've ever had the chance to be in the presence of someone who commands that much presence. I will tell you one of the stories I remember most about somebody that I would describe as someone who commanded authority, is when I had the chance to meet President George W. Bush in person in Washington, D.C. And one of the things that every single one of us in our family were amazed by is when he spoke to you, he looked you straight in the eye, almost like he was looking through you, and he listened. He listened to my grandmother tell him where she was from, and he was able to tell her things that he knew about where she was from. And he just, not only by the way he stood and carried himself, he commanded authority. Obviously, he had the authority because he's president, but he also had the ability to show people his care and concern for them. And so when I picture this, I picture the opportunity I had to meet President George W. Bush. Possibly you've had somebody else in your life where you've realized, hey, that person commands authority. Now, obviously, Jesus had a different kind of authority. So for me to compare, I know it's not apples to apples, but it helps me picture what it was that the Bible is describing here, is that when Jesus spoke, he spoke with authority. He walked in as a teacher. He didn't look like a teacher. He walked in as a teacher trying to and commanded the authority of the room. People listened to him, in other words. They paid attention to what he was saying because he had God's authority. So not only did he speak with authority, he was able to heal a man in there amongst them who had an unclean spirit in him, and so he was probably demon possessed. It was and so he probably spoke erratically. He probably behaved erratically. Everybody knew this man was probably a frightening man, and Jesus, again, something the priests wouldn't do, went to him and healed him. And the spirit listened to him and removed himself from Jesus. Like Jesus had the authority to speak that into this man's life. Then he went to um, Peter and James's house, and Peter's mother-in-law was ill, very ill. And Jesus went in to speak to her, and as he was speaking to her, she was healed. And so not only was Jesus showing his authority amongst great groups of people, he was showing that in his friend group, in his closest friend group. And then after all of this was done, he was walking through town and he saw a man who probably had leprosy. He had sore spots all over his body, and Jesus healed him as well. And that was not something that the priests would do. If the priests did things like that, they couldn't do their job. So Jesus was coming in with God authority to do things that nobody else could ever possibly do, so that Jesus could prove to everyone that he was who God sent him to be, exactly like was prophesied in Isaiah. That he was God man with authority to speak and to heal and to teach, just the way God had prepared him to, so that other people could turn and acknowledge that Jesus is the Son of God. And when we all acknowledge that Jesus is the Son of God and that we need that Savior, then we have the ability to be right with God again. And God prepared this for all of eternity, for this to be the one thing that all of us would do. So in your lesson today, your big picture question is, why did God create people? And now that may sound like a really weird question to ask in the middle of this, but the answer to that is God created people to worship him. And we can worship him differently when we acknowledge that he is God. Not only that he was good teacher, good healer, good person, we acknowledge that he is God. You put him in his God spot, and that we love him. And when you love someone, you're willing to do anything for them, right? And then on top of that, you want to tell everybody about all that God has done for you. So when we worship God, we are doing three things at the same time. We are showing him how much he means to us. We are loving him by doing whatever it takes to express that love to him, and then also by sharing that with others around us. So that is your lesson today. I'm sorry, I'm long-winded. I haven't seen you guys in a long time, so this will get shorter. Then in your small group time, you're going to play kind of a Simon Says. And you can play it as Simon Says if you want to, but it's called Listen, Watch, and Follow. And what you're going to do is do some simple movements like touch your nose. And you're going to say the command and you're going to do it. Now, at some point, I want for you to not do what you say you want someone to do. So if I say touch your nose and I do this instead, who is going to follow what I did instead of what I said? And if they follow what you did instead of what you said, then they will sit down. And it's just a fun game. And I encourage you to use your leader notes, because the notes help you understand that this game helps us realize that when Jesus spoke with authority, people are paying attention to his words, but not just his words, his actions at the same time. That his actions met his words. And so many of us, so many times get in trouble because our words do not meet our actions. As a parent, you are going to learn that more than anything. Your words need to meet your actions, otherwise it wouldn't really matter what you say. In other words, as some people, as I've heard my mom say, she doesn't do it very often. It's not in her character, but do as I say, not as I do. The only time that has been an issue is we both love junk food, and so she would tell me to eat healthy, but she's eating junk food, and so that's the only time I have seen that inconsistency of my mom, and it's actually kind of a funny joke for us. Your memory verse activity might be a big stretch activity for your littlest ones. So if you want to, just make a fun way for them to remember the memory verse, which is John 3:16, which is a really good one for all of us to memorize. But as a fun way to play this game, we have given you kind of a Mad Libs kind of thing. And so ask for them to help you fill in the blanks with words and then compare that to the words that are up on the banners in the room or in your folder that actually has the memory verse. And then you can pray, and there's coloring sheets available for your small group as well. Thank you so much for leading. I love you guys. If you want to wear a mask while you're here, please do so. If you need to bow out at any time because you or a family member or someone from work is being tested, please let me know as soon as possible. I want to care for you and to make sure that we are all safe as well. I love you guys. I can't wait to see you. We'll see you soon.